571257 or send $29.95 plus $5.95 shipping and handling to Singer Handy Stitch, P.O. Box 8250, Atlanta, Georgia 30306. For fastest delivery, use your credit card and call now 1-800-257-1257.
This is CNN.
Nightmare of the 90s, a growing population straining an already crowded planet.
Extortion under the Golden Arches, a bloody bomb campaign targets McDonald's fast food restaurants in Taiwan.
And a wave of lightning walkouts and crippling shutdowns. Strikers in Germany threaten to paralyze the western part of the country. To our viewers around the world, good afternoon from CNN Center in Atlanta. I'm Frank Sesno.
And good evening from London. I'm Hilary Bowker. The numbers are difficult even to imagine. The world's population could double over the next 60 years. That staggering figure comes from the latest annual report of the United Nations Population Fund. The group's executive director says the ever-expanding population and a stressed resource base add up to, quote, the possibility of future economic and ecological catastrophe. CNN's Rob Reynolds looks at the population figures and what they mean for the future.
The world's population will grow by nearly 100 million people every year for the next decade, the biggest growth in human history. Most of Mother Earth's new children will be born into poverty and a lifetime of struggle for a share of the planet's ever-shrinking resources of food, water, and energy. Those are the conclusions of a report prepared by the United Nations Population Fund. The report says that world population, now at 5.5 billion, could nearly double by the middle of the 21st century.
The world is heading for disaster, and the planet, I think, will be in serious danger if we are not able to do more about controlling the rate of population growth.
The environmental effects of this population increase will include more pollution, bigger, more congested cities, destruction of land, forests, and wildlife, increased migration from poorer to richer countries, and potentially economic and political instability.
What happens to the countries of the South will certainly determine also the future of the countries of the North. They can't build a wall around themselves.
The leaders of the rich nations of the North and the poor nations of the South will get together for a conference in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in June. They'll discuss the environment, development, the burden of debt, and the cost of cleaning up the mess mankind has made of its birthplace. But they won't talk much about population growth. The draft version of the Rio Summit's most important document only makes a vague reference to appropriate demographic policies. Critics say pressure from the Vatican and a handful of Catholic countries forced the deletion of references to curbing population growth through family planning and contraception. They say unless the documents are rewritten, the conference will be seriously flawed.
Well, the substance of Rio may be that the mountains have labored mightily and brought forward a mouse, that the thing will be something of a flop. And it may be it's better to be a complete failure than a partial failure dressed up as a success.
The UN report says the key to curbing runaway population growth lies with giving poor women a chance to earn their own livelihood.
Where women have income-generating possibilities for themselves, there women seem to make the decisions to first space their children and also to limit the size of their families.
And the report emphasizes the need to act quickly. The generation born in the 1990s will produce its own even larger generation in the 21st century. In the Bible, God told Adam and Eve, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." Today, the most pessimistic experts believe that within 150 years, the Earth's population could reach an almost unthinkable 20 billion people. By then, the Earth may be beyond replenishment. Rob Reynolds, CNN, London.
A little later, we'll talk about the world's population problems with the editor of that UN report. Frank?
After more substantive discussions, delegates have wrapped up today's session of Middle East peace talks in Washington. Palestinian negotiator Haider Abdul-Shafi acknowledged that Israel is not objecting to the concept of general elections in the occupied territories, and the two sides are discussing the details of a possible vote. But there is still disagreement. Israelis want to begin with municipal elections only. And though the Palestinians have not rejected the plan outright, they want general elections for a legislature. Israel's talks with the Lebanese have also wrapped up for the day, with Israel calling for a peace treaty before it withdraws its troops from southern Lebanon. For their part, the Syrians called broadly for resolution of the Arab-Israeli conflict. The session is to end tomorrow, and talks expected to resume in Rome on a not yet agreed-upon date.
Police in Taiwan say they have some clues about who might be responsible for a series of bomb attacks at McDonald's restaurants. The restaurant chain has decided to temporarily close all 57 of its restaurants in that country. Lisa Goldstein reports from Taipei.
A police officer from the Taipei bomb squad died Tuesday evening following the explosion of a bomb left by extortionists at the flagship restaurant of McDonald's Taiwan. The blast occurred in the heart of Taipei's business district, causing minor property damage in addition to the fatality. A second bomb later exploded in a phone booth outside a McDonald's in the southern city of Kaohsiung. But McDonald's owners didn't move to shut down their restaurants until a third bomb blew up Wednesday afternoon while two employees were trying to remove it. The bomb was found packed inside a canister of tea leaves above ceiling tiles. Both workers remain hospitalized, one in serious condition. McDonald's says it received only one extortion threat demanding $240,000. The company is offering a $500,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the criminals. The Taiwan government, meanwhile, is offering $400,000. The island's premier has personally involved himself and instructed the National Police Administration to set up a special task force to investigate the attacks. It's too early to say if the targeting of McDonald's is in any way motivated by anti-American sentiment. Any such finding would be a major surprise here in Taiwan, where the 20 million Chinese have embraced American fast food with enthusiasm. McDonald's will not disclose what its likely financial losses from the shutdown will be. The company's chairman has announced that McDonald's 57 restaurants will not reopen until customer safety can be assured. Liza Goldstein for CNN Taipei.
Labor tensions are rising rapidly in Germany, where widespread strikes have paralyzed much of the western part of the country. Thousands of metal workers walked off their jobs today in support of some 150,000 striking public employees. Most services in western Germany are at a standstill. In Berlin and other cities, bags of mail stand in nearly empty post offices. Strikers are demanding a 9.5% pay raise. The federal government is offering about half that much, arguing that the cost and economics related to reunification rule out fat pay increases now. The three-day-old strike virtually has shut down transit systems in Frankfurt, triggering traffic jams of up to 6 miles leading into the city's banking center. Well, here in the United States, the National Transportation Safety Board has sent a team of investigators to the site of an Amtrak train crash. It happened this morning near Newport News, Virginia, when the train slammed into a dump truck at a grade crossing. The truck driver was killed. At least 53 people on the train were injured. The train, en route from Newport News to New York City, may have been traveling at nearly 80 miles an hour when the collision occurred earlier today.
When the international hour continues, life in Kabul, the Afghan capital, is a little quieter, but the sounds of war have not completely faded. We'll have that story.
And just ahead, we'll talk with one of the leading experts on world population growth.
It's allergy time again. Time for chlortrimeton. Time for the relief millions have turned to all across the country. Chlortrimeton. Independent clinical studies prove chlortrimeton relieves allergy symptoms just as effectively as the leading prescription product. Which means chlortrimeton gives you all the relief of a prescription for your sneezing, watery eyes, for your itchy throat. When it's time for allergies, it's time for chlortrimeton.
You know, you just can't beat the convenience and great taste of food cooked on your own gas grill. Now Thermos makes it even more convenient with the Minute Grill Gas Barbecue. Only the Minute Grill assembles in minutes with no tools required. It comes out of the carton practically ready to use. Just a few simple steps using no tools, and you've got it together. Attach an LP tank and you're cooking. Move up to the ultimate in great taste and convenience. No tools, no hassles, no time at all. The Minute Grill, only from Thermos.
Red Devil enamel. You can always count on its durable finish. Harder than ordinary paints, its beauty lasts and lasts. Red Devil enamel for the finish of a lifetime.
Add a filet, Ray.
Now, buy any meal at Long John Silver's and add a piece. Fish for 75 cents, chicken for 65, or shrimp for 35.
Animal, Paul!
Go Bears! Long John Silver's!
Sunday, TBS presents the movie that made Clint Eastwood an international superstar.
I don't work cheap.
And made a hero out of a mysterious drifter.
Get 3 coffins ready. My mistake. 4 coffins.
Clint Eastwood.
Go ahead, load up and shoot.
Fistful of Dollars. 10:35 Eastern Sunday morning on TBS.
As we told you earlier on the International Hour, a new report from the United Nations says the world's population is growing faster than ever. Over the next decade, the biggest increases are expected in Africa, in Asia, and in South America. With us here in London to discuss the findings is Alex Marshall. He's the editor of the UN's report, The State of the World Population, 1992. Mr. Marshall, these numbers are they're really almost impossible to believe.
They are, but they're true, unfortunately. Pardon me, my voice is worn out talking about them today. But it seems that the world population is actually adding to itself at something like 97 billion people a year. So that we're going from 5.48 billion people now to 6 billion people by 1998.
What do we do?
Well, we can't do very much about that. Those people, it's almost predetermined. What we can do is about what happens in the next century, and that really is what the report is about.
Well, population control is something that we really aren't hearing that much about. For example, we're going to have this big summit in South America this summer. As Rob Reynolds mentioned earlier in his report, there's almost no mention of it, and it doesn't seem that there is a great deal of encouragement towards family planning from some of the developed nations. Why?
There's no doubt you can't do anything about environmental problems, which is what the Earth Summit is all about, without considering the people. We cause the problems after all. And the number of us and the rate of our increase has a vital impact on what happens to the environment. The fact is that population has become something of a political football in this what they call the unsaid process. It's been going on for nearly 2 years now. And many people, including most developing countries, recognize that population is indeed a problem. The question is, how can we agree what is a problem, what are the biggest problems, population or consumption? So far the southern countries have been saying consumption is the problem. It's your problem, the North's problem. And the North has tended to say to the South, well, no, it's the number of people. And the fact is, it's both our problems, it's all our problems.
Well, when you think, though, in terms of the population control, why do you think that there have been some cuts? I understand the the United States cut its UN family planning aid. Why do you think so?
Yes, the United States dropped out for its own reasons in 1986, but nobody else has followed the lead. In fact, it was to do with a particular problem the United States had with UNFPA's program in China. Put shortly, they said that the UNFPA was involved in a program of coercion in China, which is not true, and in fact the US government's own report showed it to be not true. But nevertheless, the US withdrew its support. Now, the US has not been followed by any country, not by any country at all. In fact, our support has gone up since the US withdrew, but nevertheless, it means that a crucial contributor to tackling world population problems has withdrawn from the game at a crucial time.
And very briefly, if in fact something isn't started, I mean, if we don't begin to do something quickly, it will really affect the number of people we'll be dealing with later on, won't it?
Yes, we have to tackle the problem now in the next 10 years. What we do in the next 10 years will virtually determine the future of population growth for the next century.
Now, on the other side, in terms of the resources that we use, do you find that you get a deaf ear when you start talking to people about consuming less?
Well, we're the population fund. Our remit is the population problem. We do, of course, say, yes, if you expect people in the South to believe you, excuse me again, then you have to say, look, we are willing to match your discipline, your willingness to act with our willingness to act. But we can only point that out. We don't have programs in the North. The whole political process that's going into UNCED is calling on northern countries, yes, to limit their consumption, to be reasonable about the weight at which they put on the earth. And I think if they did that, then they would find developing countries willing to listen to talk about population growth.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alex Marshall is the editor of the United Nations report, The State of the World Population, 1992. Frank?
And coming later on the International Hour, a report on the apparent end of a peasant revolt in Nicaragua after unrest in 3 provincial capitals.
And from Russia, we'll have the story of the restoration of a cathedral and a culture.
His beautiful piano albums have sold in the millions. TV and recording star, Floyd Kramer. Now, Heartland Music presents Floyd Kramer in an all-new collection of his most beautiful recordings ever. Floyd has a special piano style that makes every song so warm and relaxing. You'll get 2 beautiful albums. From smooth, easy favorites to today's most beautiful songs, you'll love these all-new recordings. But this special Floyd Kramer collection is not in stores. Please order now.
To order, call toll-free 1-800-257-1257 to save all COD charges and pay only $12.98 for records or cassettes or $16.98 for CD plus $3 shipping. Use your credit card or send check or money order to Floyd Kramer, P.O. Box 8250, Atlanta, Georgia. Remember, save COD charges by sending check or money order or use your credit card.
In Sierra Leone today, angry government soldiers who say they've not been paid in 3 months surrounded the State House. They fired machine guns into the air, setting off panic in the streets of Freetown, the capital. There are conflicting reports at this hour, but loyal army and police forces say the situation has been contained. The people of Ghana have taken a step closer to major political reform, with voters there strongly endorsing a ballot measure for a new multi-party constitution. Ballots from about half the regions in that West African country show a 90% approval rating. The proposed constitution would end an 11-year ban on political parties and replace the military-led government with an elected president and legislature.
In Afghanistan, the transfer of power and return to normalcy still isn't complete. Today, a suspected agent of the former secret police was executed in the streets of Kabul. In neighboring Pakistan, the Afghan military attaché is missing. But there are signs that the ruling guerrilla council is gaining greater acceptance. Iran has offered recognition, and Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif visited Kabul to meet with the council leaders. He offered the new guerrilla government aid worth $20 million. CNN's Ashish Rai has more on the situation in Afghanistan.
The rebel coalition now controls most parts of Kabul. In a decisive battle which stretched for several hours, it evicted a rival faction led by hardliner Gulbuddin Hekmatyar from the Interior Ministry. Heavy rocket fire forced the dissidents into submission. Several died. The others surrendered. Diplomatic missions in the Afghan capital have lived in fear of becoming accidental targets during the artillery exchanges. The Indian embassy has been among the more vulnerable.
We'd had quite a few contingency measures taken. We had moved our staff initially to the Chancery premises for relative safety as compared to the houses because of the fighting all around town.
The new head of the interim administration, Professor Sigmatullah Mojadidi, moved quickly to apologize to heads of overseas missions for the inconvenience caused by the fighting. They were formally introduced to him at a ceremony at the Afghan Foreign Ministry. Mojadidi also utilized the occasion to indicate Islamic Afghanistan's foreign policy.
We hope to keep our good relations with all the free countries, free world, and especially those peace-lover countries.
But most of Mojadidi's council members are yet to arrive in Kabul, and life is still far from normal in the Afghan capital. But the people are relieved that the worst of the clashes may be over.
Now we feel, everybody feel happy in Kabul, in the city.
Nevertheless, vast areas of the city are without water and electricity, and telephones are mostly out of order. But it's understood that Hekmatyar, who's been holding out against the consensus reached by other Mujahideen leaders, may finally agree to nominate one of his partymen as Prime Minister in the ruling council. If this happens, there could at last be peace in Afghanistan, at least for the time being. Ashish Rai, CNN, Kabul.
Still to come, workers go about the delicate task of disentangling two ships locked together since a morning collision.
And in St. Petersburg, a country in search of itself buries a piece of its past. A farewell to the distant heir to the Russian throne.
Fingerman on location for the one and only Ziploc. Freezer burn. That's a chilling thought. To protect your food, there is nothing like Ziploc brand freezer bags. Ziploc has the gripper zipper, the only bag with tough, tiny teeth. You can feel it gripping, so you know freshness is locked in, freezer burns locked out. That's a good feeling you only get from Ziploc. I gotta get some gloves. For fresh food, there's only one Ziploc.
For those of you who have been reluctant to wear a hearing aid, Miracle Ear has more great news. If you have trouble hearing in noisy situations, the exciting Miracle Ear Clarifier may be your answer. The Clarifier features a special filter that automatically reduces background noise.
In a restaurant situation, it picks up the noises I want to hear, but the other noises are just moved off into the background.
If you or someone you know thinks they may be suffering from hearing loss, call Miracle Ear at this number and receive helpful information.
It really makes a lot of difference in your way of hearing and in your way of life.
Call this number. Miracle Ear will send you a booklet on better hearing, plus a coupon for a free hearing test. Call today. Learn about all the good news from Miracle Ear.
A lot of people don't even know you got it, especially the one I got, the design that I got.
Call this number. Find out if Miracle Ear can help you.
When important people have something to say, they say it on CNN.
I don't think we'd end up in a civil war.
Get in touch with the people shaping the news. Watch Evans and Novak, Saturdays on CNN.
A morning collision off the coast of Hong Kong has left two ships locked together and precariously afloat. Only one person was injured when a Greek container vessel collided with a German cruise liner. Most of the Greek crew abandoned ship when that vessel started to take on water. They were able to climb aboard the liner. Rescue workers are worried that separating the two ships might cause one of them to sink. In Japan, a wooden replica of Christopher Columbus's flagship, the Santa Maria, has slammed into a modern hazard. The Santa Maria is now tied up at a Japanese port commemorating Columbus's original goal, finding a sea route to the Orient. A Coast Guard spokesman says that on Saturday, a Japanese fishing boat collided with the Santa Maria off the coast of western Japan. The accident left a hole in the Santa Maria. The fishing boat suffered extensive damage.
In Nicaragua, the need for land has given once bitter enemies something to agree on. Armed insurgents have been demanding the government of President Violeta Chamorro come through on election promises to give them land. CNN's Ronnie Lovler has our report.
A peasant revolt in northern Nicaragua by armed bands of former Contras and Sandinista soldiers is over. A government agreement to give the rebels land took the fire out of their rebellion. There were uprisings in at least 3 provincial capitals, although the revolt was the most violent in Esteli, 90 miles north of the capital. Barricades were set up throughout the city and along the Pan American Highway, blocking travel between Honduras to the north and Costa Rica to the south. Many protesters had homemade weapons like Molotov cocktails, but others were more heavily armed, with everything from rifles and pistols to mortars.
They promised to give us houses, land to work, plots of land for us combatants, but up to now they have given us nothing, not even a sheet of zinc.
Things got ugly in Esteli after a 38-year-old tobacco worker was killed during a confrontation with riot police. Authorities were attempting to dislodge the insurgents from barricades when the violence flared.
There were around 45 armed men with a machine gun set up on the hill that was firing here. It was then that police responded with fire.
They began to shoot at us. We weren't really armed, except with garrotes.
Ongoing government programs to get people to turn in weapons in exchange for cash or food haven't had much of an effect here, judging by the number of weapons the Esteli insurgents had in hand. Even mortars were brought out and assembled. Ironically, all these weapons were coming from the ranks of people who ostensibly disarmed at ceremonies like this one just a few months ago. When the violence flared, President Violeta Chamorro and her cabinet were on a visit to remote parts of eastern Nicaragua. Former President Daniel Ortega drove up to Esteli to try and calm tensions, since many of the insurgents are originally from Sandinista ranks. But these rebels call themselves revueltos now, the Spanish word for scrambled, and slang here for the phenomenon that has occurred between former Contras and Sandinista soldiers, one-time battlefield enemies, united now in a common struggle to get the government to give them land. President Chamorro has been trying to bring ex-combatants from both sides together, but not like this, along the barricades in an uprising against her government. Ronnie Lovler, CNN, Esteli, Nicaragua.
And coming up later in the hour on CNN World Report with Ralph Wenge, charges of human rights abuses are directed at the Turkish government for its role in the northern part of Cyprus.
And Canadian beer companies brace themselves for the sobering after effects of new trade agreement with the United States.
It's life.